A silent hunt is underway for Alex Aya, and Adidas is closing in. Nike has just caught the scent, and the clash that's coming threatens to rewrite the entire landscape of brand supremacy in women's tennis. This isn't speculation. This isn't a headline designed for clicks. This is the saga of a 20-year-old Filipina who, over the course of 12 unbelievable months, transformed into the most coveted unsigned talent in all of professional sports. In doing so, she ignited a clandestine and brutal battle between two of the most dominant brands our world has ever known. There's a reason you chose to watch this. She entered the 2025 Miami Open as a wildcard, ranked 140 in the world. No one rolled out the red carpet for her. No one cleared her path to glory. The tournament organizers offered her a spot as a professional courtesy, like dropping a penny in a well, never imagining it would create a tidal wave. Then Alexandra Eala stepped onto that court and began to systematically shatter every preconceived notion the tennis world held about its own rigid order. A revolution in ink and pixels, Viet Su Kie Hung, which translates to heroic Vietnamese history, is an animated saga that breathes fiery life into the annals of Vietnam's past. First, she took down Jelena Ostapenko. Then she outplayed Madison Keys, the newly crowned Australian Open champion and world number 5, with a clinical 6-4, 6-2 performance that left commentators speechless. She met the gaze of Iga Świątek, the titan with 5 Grand Slams and the world number 2 ranking, and she never once flinched. The scoreboard read 6-2, 7-5. An unseeded player from the Philippines had just toppled the Polish monarch of clay courts in straight sets on a hard court surface. An explosion of sound rocked the Hard Rock Stadium. The internet shattered into a million conversations, and in the high-rise headquarters of two athletic empires, telephones began to ring in perfect, frantic unison. After vanquishing Świątek, a visibly shaken Eala confessed to the world in her post-match interview. "I didn't know if I should start screaming or just start crying. I was just trying to live in the moment because I've never felt this before." Those words, delivered with the raw vulnerability of someone who had just achieved the impossible, echoed through newsrooms in 47 countries within hours. Before she even left the press conference, her online following had erupted, soaring past 350,000. By the day of her semi-final match against Jessica Pegula, her image was emblazoned on the front pages of Philippine dailies, featured on Spanish sports news, and was the lead story on tennis channels from Tokyo to London. Her incredible run ended in the semi-finals. She left with a check for $332,160, a sum greater than all her previous career earnings combined. In 1 week, her WTA ranking vaulted from 140 to 75. She had become the first Filipino in history to grace a WTA 1000 semifinal, the first to defeat more than one top 5 player, and the first to crack the world's top 100. Before 2025 was over, she had captured a WTA 125 championship in Guadalajara, battled her way to her first WTA final at Eastbourne, claimed a historic Grand Slam singles win at the US Open, and by February 9, 2026, had reached a career-best ranking of number 40 in the world. But none of those statistics reveal the true story. That's the part the rankings and the win-loss columns can never illustrate. Inside the strategic command centers of Herzogenaurach and Beaverton, among the brand visionaries and talent scouts, a single name was being uttered with increasing urgency: Alexandra Eala. But Nike hadn't just stumbled upon Alex Eala, they had chosen her. And that single difference is monumental once you grasp the corporation's methodology. Years before the world knew her name, Nike had already made its move, signing Eala. They were the ones dressing her for junior competitions as a teenager, honing her craft at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Majorca, Spain. Their iconic swoosh was on her apparel when she lifted the 2022 US Open Junior Singles Trophy, becoming the very first Filipino to claim that honor. They were there at the genesis of a legend, and they were acutely aware of it. But the bond between Nike and Eala wasn't merely commercial. It blossomed into an alliance that was far more calculated and profoundly personal. For Ayala's Wimbledon debut in July of 2025, Nike sent more than just apparel. They presented her with a custom-made hair tie, sculpted to resemble a sampaguita blossom, the national flower of the Philippines. Their official social media post declared, "The sampaguita is a flower that holds its own. And so does Alex Eala. A lifetime of preparation, a nation at her back, the first Filipina to conquer the green." That single, powerful gesture resonated with millions of Filipinos across the globe. It wasn't a random act. It was not a last-minute idea. It was the masterstroke of a brand that had deeply analyzed their athlete, grasped her cultural significance, and poured resources into building the emotional core of her story. Nike was doing more than sponsoring a tennis prodigy. They were positioning themselves as co-authors of a national epic, and the partnership was about to go even deeper. After Wimbledon, Nike joined forces with Filipino artist Georgina Camus to create the Nike by You in Full Bloom collection, a limited-run t-shirt paying homage to Ayala's roots, her Sampaguita hair accessory, and her legendary tournament performance. Soon after, Ayala graced the cover of Vogue Philippines wearing that very collection. She was no longer just an athlete with an endorsement deal. She had been elevated to a cultural icon, and Nike was standing right there, meticulously crafting the frame around her. So, if all that is true, what is a word like leverage doing in the title of this chapter? It is there because of a cold, hard fact in the world of professional sports. Loyalty is a feeling, a contract is just paper, and all paper has an expiration date. In the wake of Ayala's stunning Miami victory, industry analysts began drawing a straight line to the rise of Emma Raducanu. Her own US Open win in 2021 was a similar phenomenon, a sudden, earth-shaking arrival of a young woman onto the world stage. These analysts pointed out that Ayala's current contract with Nike was about to become woefully inadequate and would demand a massive overhaul. The term that echoed through countless articles was not renewed, but upgraded. The value she had created during that incredible wildcard performance was astronomically higher than any deal signed when she was just ranked 140th in the world. Nike got the message loud and clear. But they also knew something else was happening. They could feel the eyes of their rivals turning in her direction. Now, pay very close attention, because this is the moment the entire game changed. Throughout 2025 and 2026, Adidas was executing its most aggressive commercial strategy in recent memory. Their tennis portfolio was already stacked with titans: Grand Slam finalist Jessica Pegula, Alexander Zverev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, Karolina Muchova, Hubert Hurkacz, and Grigor Dimitrov. It was a truly formidable lineup of the sports elite. The brand's Y3 collaboration during the 2025 US Open captured massive media attention, with Pegula herself praising their constant drive to innovate. Adidas is amazing at reinventing themselves, at creating something new every single year. At Flushing Meadows, the next generation of American talent Iga Świątek, Ashlyn Kruger, Lerner Tien, and Alex Michelson were all seen sporting the iconic three stripes. The company's investment in young talent was deliberate, strategic, and growing. But inside this fortress, there was a flaw, a glaring, commercially painful void. Despite all their acquisitions in 2025 and 2026, they lacked a commanding presence in Southeast Asian women's tennis. They had no one who truly connected with the Filipino market, a market that included the Philippine diaspora, a global community of roughly 12 million people living across North America, Europe, the Gulf, and East Asia. Adidas had no voice for a region that sports analysts were calling one of the planet's fastest-growing markets for high-end athletic apparel. Ayala didn't merely represent the Philippines. She was the key to unlocking the commercial potential of an entire geographical region. Her victory in Miami triggered a media firestorm across Southeast Asia. Globe Telecom, a giant in the Philippines, had sponsored her since she was just 8. BPI, the Bank of the Philippine Islands, showcased her as a symbol of financial responsibility to millions of young Filipinos. Locally, Juice brought her on board in July 2025. Every brand with roots in the Philippines desperately wanted to be associated with her. Every global company trying to break into Southeast Asia needed a face that would resonate with more than just Western consumers. Consider Adidas. Their publicly declared mission was to supercharge growth in the Asia-Pacific, with a laser focus on high-potential territories outside of North America and Europe, using a strategy built around athlete-led campaigns. For them, it would have been a catastrophic failure of corporate duty not to consider Alexandra Ayala a prime target. And the timing? It was almost unbelievably perfect. The deal Nike had with her was from a bygone era, signed when she was a promising junior champion, not a top 40 force on the WTA Tour who graced the covers of Vogue and won matches at Grand Slams. Every time a contract is up for renegotiation, a window of opportunity opens, and windows always attract attention. Adidas, which had been tracking Ayala's ascent with the tactical precision of a company that rarely loses its top talent, knew the exact moment that window would slide open. But before we dive into the chess match between Nike and Adidas, we have to stop and look at something remarkable that was happening in the shadows. It was a story most outlets wrote off as fake news, but it tells us more about Alex Ayala's market power than any official statement ever could. In September 2025, a post surfaced on Facebook asserting that Wilson Sporting Goods had offered Ayala a $45 million endorsement deal, which she'd reportedly accepted and vowed to give to charity. A fabricated quote, translated from the original, was attributed to her. "I am grateful for your faith in me, but I will be taking this money and giving it to those who truly need help. There are so many who need it more than I, and I want to see the Philippines grow ever stronger." The story was a complete fiction. Wilson never made the offer. Ayala never said a word. Fact-checking organizations like Rappler and Vera Files published detailed takedowns within a few days. A wave of similar fakes followed rumors of Air Jordan contracts, Emirates airline deals, and a Yonex racket engraved with the words Filipina icon, all just as baseless, just as viral, and just as quickly debunked by verification teams. But amid the frenzy to set the record straight, nobody paused to ask the most important question. Why did these stories catch fire? The fake Wilson story alone garnered 13,000 reactions, 1,200 comments, and hundreds of shares on Facebook before anyone even flagged it as false. Threads about Air Jordan sparked a similar level of fervor. A fabricated story on Threads, alleging Michael Jordan himself had handpicked Aya for a $1 billion Air Jordan contract, ignited a firestorm of excitement among Filipino fans. This fiction exploded online for one simple reason. A massive, deeply emotional, and market-savvy audience was desperate for the story to be reality. This craving, primal, immediate, and utterly genuine, represents a kind of market insight that focus groups can only dream of capturing. The false report didn't invent Aya's market power. It merely dragged it into the light. It unveiled a legion of followers, millions strong, ready to trust, amplify, and champion her story across the entire global digital landscape. For any company thinking of partnering with Aya, these fabricated endorsements served as an impromptu market analysis, with results that were crystal clear. The fan base for this athlete is primed, passionate, and ready to spend. Nike was paying attention to every detail. They analyzed the viral fiction. They monitored the Vogue cover story. They observed the sudden surge of 350,000 new followers. They recognized the Sampita hair tie's transformation into a Philippine national emblem. And then, they acted. The parallels drawn to Emma Raducanu in SABC Sports' post-Miami breakdown were more than just clever commentary. When Raducanu, an unseeded wildcard, conquered the 2021 US Open, from a ranking of 150th in the world, the ensuing corporate gold rush turned her into one of the most valuable athletic brands in British history, with a signature from Tiffany & Co., Dior, British Airways, and an effin' Ponsication. Enormously expanded Nike partnership that rewrote the rules for a female tennis star's commercial potential. Observers charting Ayala's journey through Miami recognized the exact same blueprint materializing. An unexpected contender, an explosive display of talent, an entire country electrified, and a worldwide audience captivated by a fresh new face. Nike's reaction to this parallel was anything but passive. The creation of the Sampita collection was no accident. The joint venture with Vogue Philippines was a calculated move. The exclusive In Full Bloom shirt, marketed through Park Access with strategic geographic targeting, was merely the first act in a far more ambitious, resonant, and lucrative strategy. Nike wasn't just extending a deal. They were redefining an asset. Ayala was ascending from the status of a sponsored athlete to that of a cultural phenomenon. Their strategic reasoning was undeniable. Nike had witnessed a mass exodus of premier talent from rival brands throughout 2024 and 2025. Francis Tiafoe defected to Lululemon. Jack Draper joined Voy. Lorenzo Musetti signed with AS6. Taylor Fritz went to Hugo Boss, and Anna Kalinskaya even departed Adidas to come back to Nike. The arena of tennis endorsements had transformed into a truly volatile, fiercely contested, and thoroughly unpredictable battlefield. Within this climate, permitting even a hint of uncertainty about Ayala's allegiance would constitute a monumental strategic blunder. The In Full Bloom campaign served as Nike's public pronouncement, a message aimed not only at Ayala, but at every rival brand circling on the sidelines. We were with her from the start. We helped forge this narrative alongside her. Our insight into this athlete runs deeper than any bank transaction could ever replicate. Walk away from this. For Nike, the consequences were immense. A top 40 Filipino star, under 21 years old, who has already won Grand Slam matches, graced the cover of Vogue and embodies a national cultural icon on the court, all while unlocking a global diaspora numbering in the tens of millions. No other player in the entire sport offers a comparable combination of value. To allow such an athlete to defect to the three stripes would be a corporate catastrophe of the highest order, the kind that leads to a complete overhaul in the executive suite. This raises the one question the tennis establishment isn't asking aloud, yet the business world can't stop murmuring about. What is it that Alex Eala truly desires? Because beyond the boardroom tactics, the strategic marketing plans, and the market, penetration forecasts, and the acquisition budgets, there is a 20-year-old from Quezon City. She first picked up a racket at 4 years old, crossed an ocean at the age of 13 to train in Mallorca, and dedicating years to the grueling grind of ITF qualifiers and heartbreaking early round defeats long before she found herself in a Miami press conference, declaring through a veil of raw emotion, "My aspirations have never changed, they've never wavered." This is not a dry recitation of dates and events. It is a cinematic resurrection of legendary warriors and pivotal moments that shaped a nation. I've never been afraid to dream big. Winning Grand Slams that has consistently been one of the ultimate objectives. Reaching the #1 spot has also always been an ultimate objective. I feel this result happened at the perfect moment. The company that secures Eala isn't just buying ad space. They are acquiring a phenomenon. They are forging a bond with a country that, prior to March 2025, had never seen one of its own break into the WTA's top 100. A nation whose celebration of her Miami victory was a display of unified pride so profound it went far beyond the realm of athletics. They are gaining entry into the most rapidly expanding sports market in Southeast Asia through the most genuine ambassador imaginable. An athlete nurtured by those very markets, celebrated by those fans, and embraced by those communities as one of their own. Eala herself is acutely aware of the mantle she now carries. Her philosophy has always revolved around building walls, the art of silencing the chaos outside to find focus within. She articulated this perfectly during her Miami press conference, stating, "I have a long history of being a professional. I feel no reluctance in tapping into that side of myself on the court or in any situation that demands that level of composure." This mental armor, forged in the quiet years away from the spotlight, is the very bedrock upon which every future commercial partnership will be built. Nike offered a flower and labeled it an icon. Adidas assembled a dynasty and called it a plan. But Eala created something that neither of those giants could ever buy. She forged a sacred, unbreakable bond between a single athlete and her homeland. When she lifted that trophy at the 2025 US Open, the first Filipino to ever do so, the victory wasn't owned by a brand. It was owned by a nation. The bidding war between Nike and Adidas for her allegiance is very real. It is happening now, and it is set to explode as her ranking soars and her presence in major tournaments becomes undeniable. But whichever corporation emerges victorious must comprehend the profound nature of what they are actually signing. They are not just getting a tennis champion, a marketing shortcut to a new region, or another face for a poster. They are signing the living embodiment of an entire country's aspirations. And that, beyond any contractual figure, beyond any campaign's budget, beyond a swoosh or three stripes, is the most precious asset in all of professional sports. The one question that remains is whether the brand that finally lands Alex Eala will grasp what they've won, or if she'll become just another star in their uniform. So, what's the verdict? Does Alex Eala's deep-rooted loyalty to Nike hold, or does this power play from Adidas rewrite the entire script? Post your prediction in the comments. And if this narrative struck a chord, you already know what to do. Subscribe. Activate notifications, because the next installment of this epic is guaranteed to be even more momentous.